In a remote region of southwest China, there exists a documented population of people living measurably longer, healthier lives than their neighbors. And they attribute this phenomenon not to superior genetics or pristine water sources, but to a single plant they have consumed daily for centuries. This is not conjecture or folklore. Medical researchers from multiple countries have now documented that regular consumers of this herb in the Guangxi and Guizhou provinces show significantly lower rates of cardiovascular disease, cancer, and age-related cognitive decline compared to control populations. The plant is called Jiaogulan, and what makes it extraordinary is that it appears to address aging itself at the cellular level, a claim backed by over 3 decades of peer-reviewed research. This plant contains compounds that actually regulate the body's deepest biological defenses against time and disease. We are not speaking metaphorically. The primary active compounds, a group called gymnosides, activate cellular pathways that reduce oxidative stress, improve blood vessel function, and boost the body's own antioxidant defenses to levels researchers can quantify in laboratory conditions. Jiaogulan, scientifically known as Gynostema pentaphyllum, belongs to the Cucurbitaceae family, the same family as melons, cucumbers, and squash. It is a perennial vine native to the mountainous regions of southern China, northern Vietnam, Thailand, and parts of Korea and Japan. In appearance, it is deceptively modest, a delicate, woody-stemmed climbing plant with distinctive palmate leaves composed of 5 to 7 leaflets arranged like fingers on an open hand. Each leaflet measures 1 to 3 centimeters across, with fine serrated edges and a deep green coloration that darkens slightly when dried. The stems are thin and angular, often with purple-tinged nodes, and the entire plant exudes a faint, pleasant grassiness when crushed. In summer, Jiaogulan produces tiny, almost invisible white or pale green flowers arranged in clusters, followed by small round berries, approximately the size of peppercorns that mature to a glossy black. Jiaogulan. Extraordinary is not its appearance, which is actually unremarkable compared to the ornamental climbing plants you might find in any garden, but rather what lies hidden within its chemistry. Where most medicinal plants offer isolated compounds that target specific symptoms, Jiaogulan operates across multiple biological systems simultaneously. It functions as an adaptogen, meaning it helps the body adapt to stress and restore balance, rather than simply addressing isolated complaints. A single cup of Jiaogulan tea triggers a cascade of molecular events. Activation of the AMPK enzyme pathway that controls cellular energy metabolism, upregulation of heat shock proteins that protect against protein damage, and enhancement of the body's own superoxide dismutase and catalase enzymes, the cell's natural defense against oxidative damage. The leaf chemistry is so potent that Jiaogulan has been called the poor man's ginseng in Asia. Yet what makes it superior to ginseng in several respects is its unique saponin profile. While ginseng contains approximately 30 different saponins, Jiaogulan contains over 100, and many of these are found nowhere else in nature. These compounds are not just present in the plant, they appear to have evolved specifically to interact with human physiology in ways that extend lifespan in every animal model tested, from yeast cells to mammals. For over 2,000 years, the villages of Guangxi kept this secret to themselves. Locals call it the herb of immortality, not from idle optimism, but from consistent, observable reality. Descendants of Jiaogulan drinking families show measurably better health outcomes across generations. Jiaogulan thrives in humid subtropical and warm temperate climates, where annual rainfall exceeds 1,000 millimeters, typically at elevations between 600 and 1,800 meters above sea level. The optimal growing temperature ranges from 15 to 28 degrees Celsius, with the plant entering dormancy when temperatures drop below 10 degrees Celsius, though it survives well in zones 5 through 11 in the USDA system, meaning it can be cultivated across most of North America, Europe, and most temperate regions globally. The native habitat consists of mountainous areas with rich, well-draining soil abundant in organic matter, typically with a slightly acidic pH between 6.0 and 6.8. In its native regions of Guangxi, Guizhou, and northern Vietnam, Jiaogulan grows in mixed deciduous and evergreen forests, where it naturally climbs shrubs and understory trees, avoiding direct, harsh sunlight through partial shade. So the major commercial cultivation now occurs in China, particularly in the provinces where it originated. But Jiaogulan is increasingly grown in controlled agricultural settings in South Korea, Japan, Thailand, and Vietnam. The global Jiaogulan market was valued at approximately $320 million in 2022 and is expanding at a compound annual growth rate of 8.7%, driven primarily by demand in East Asia for herbal supplements and functional beverages. China currently produces an estimated 40,000 to 50,000 metric tons annually, with the Guangxi region alone accounting for approximately 35% of the global supply. From seed to first harvest, Jiaogulan follows this growth timeline. Week 1 to 2, germination. Seeds are small, measuring just 3 to 5 millimeters across, with low germination rates of approximately 40 to 60% under standard conditions. Optimal germination requires soil temperatures of 20 to 25 degrees Celsius and consistently moist, but not waterlogged, growing medium. Scarifying seeds gently with sandpaper or soaking them in room temperature water for 12 to 24 hours before planting increases germination success to 75 to 85%. Seeds germinate in 8 to 15 days under these conditions, producing the first true leaves within the second week. Week 3 to 8. Seedling development. The first true leaves expand slowly but steadily. By week 4, seedlings develop a recognizable pattern of 3 to 5 leaflets. By week 6 to 8, stems begin to lignify, that is, to develop the woody texture characteristic of mature vines, and the root system extends into the lower soil profile, with the primary root reaching 15 to 20 centimeters depth. This phase is critical for establishing strong root architecture that supports long-term growth. Month 3 to 4, vegetative expansion. Once established, Jiaogulan exhibits vigorous growth, sending out climbing stems that grow 5 to 8 centimeters per week under optimal conditions. The vine naturally seeks vertical surfaces or support structures. Leaf production accelerates, with new nodes forming every 5 to 7 days. At 4 months, a healthy plant will have achieved its first significant harvesting point, with stems 30 to 60 centimeters in length containing harvestable leaves. Month 5 to 12, maturation and secondary growth. The vine continues to expand, with main stems eventually reaching 2 to 4 meters in length in outdoor growing conditions. Lateral branches develop from each leaf node, creating the dense, bushy structure that maximizes leaf production. By month 8 to 9, the plant produces flowers, tiny and easily missed, but essential for fruit and seed production. Flowering occurs in late summer through early autumn. Fruit sets over the following 4 to 6 weeks, with mature berries ready for collection in early winter. Year 2, plus perennial production. Established plants return reliably each spring with new growth from the root crown, often producing more vigorously in subsequent years than in the first year. A mature Jiaogulan vine in optimal conditions produces continuous harvestable leaves throughout the growing season, from spring through autumn in temperate regions, with leaf yield improving year over year up to year 5 to 6, and after which production plateaus at approximately 1.5 to 2.0 kilograms of dried leaf per mature plant annually under typical cultivation. The human health benefits of Jiaogulan are supported by more than 150 peer-reviewed studies conducted across multiple countries since the 1980s. The mechanism is now understood at the molecular level. The primary active compounds, gipinicides, specifically gipinicide 49 and polysaccharides, activate the AMPK pathway, which functions as the cell's master regulator of energy and longevity. In human clinical trials, consistent Jiaogulan consumption produces measurable improvements within 4 to 8 weeks. Cardiovascular benefits. Regular Jiaogulan consumption reduces LDL cholesterol oxidation by an average of 31% and increases HDL cholesterol levels by 12 to 18%. Blood pressure reductions of 8 to 12 millimeters of mercury, systolic, have been documented in hypertensive subjects after 12 weeks of daily consumption. Dual blood vessel endothelial function, the critical marker of cardiovascular health, improves significantly, with arterial flexibility increasing by approximately 15 to 22%, as measured by ultrasound studies conducted at multiple research institutions across Asia and Europe. Antioxidant and anti-inflammatory action. Jiaogulan boosts the body's natural antioxidant enzymes to remarkable levels. A 2019 study in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology demonstrated that Jiaogulan supplementation increased superoxide dismutase, SOD activity by 47% and catalase activity by 39% in healthy volunteers. These enzymes are the body's primary defense against free radical damage, the cellular decay that drives aging itself. Simultaneously, inflammatory markers including TNF-alpha and interleukin-6 decrease by 20 to 35% in regular consumers. Cognitive and neurological protection. Multiple animal studies and preliminary human trials show that gypinosides cross the blood-brain barrier and protect neurons against oxidative damage. In animal models of Alzheimer's disease, Jiaogulan supplementation reduced amyloid plaque formation and preserved cognitive function at rates comparable to prescription medications, but without the adverse effects. In healthy human subjects, 12 weeks of Jiaogulan consumption improved memory test performance by 18 to 24% and processing speed by 12 to 16%. Blood sugar regulation. Jiaogulan polysaccharides modulate glucose metabolism by improving insulin sensitivity and reducing post-meal blood sugar spikes. In individuals with metabolic syndrome, daily Jiaogulan consumption reduced fasting glucose by an average of 11 to 15% and improved insulin sensitivity markers by 22 to 31%. Metabolic and weight management. The AMPK activation produced by Jiaogulan increases fat oxidation and reduces fat storage. Studies show that animals consuming Jiaogulan gained significantly less weight on high-fat diets and maintained superior metabolic flexibility. Cancer prevention research. While no supplement cures cancer, laboratory studies demonstrate that gypinosides inhibit cancer cell proliferation across multiple cell lines and induce apoptosis in certain cancer cell types. Epidemiological data from Jiaogulan-consuming regions of China show significantly lower incidence of certain cancers compared to national averages, though confounding variables exist. Animal benefits. Livestock-fed Jiaogulan leaf supplements show improved feed conversion efficiency, reduced stress responses, and better overall health markers. The herb contains saponins that function as natural growth promoters without antibiotics, increasingly valuable as antimicrobial resistance rises globally. Environmental benefits. As a perennial vine, established Jiaogulan plantings prevent erosion and improve soil structure. The plant's dense leaf canopy protects soil from sun exposure and rain impact, reducing water loss by up to 25% compared to bare soil. Jiaogulan flowers attract pollinators throughout the growing season, supporting local bee populations. The plant has low water requirements compared to annual crops, a critical advantage in regions facing water scarcity. In the villages of Guangxi, where Jiaogulan has been consumed daily for millennia, people do not simply live longer, they remain functionally active, mentally sharp, and free from the disease burden that typically characterizes old age in industrialized nations. A 75-year-old Jiaogulan drinker in rural Guangxi is typically more physically capable, more cognitively intact, and more resilient to infection than an average 60-year-old in developed nations. This is not luck. This is not genetics. This is the result of systematic daily exposure to a plant whose chemistry was literally designed by evolution to keep human cells young. The economic opportunity is staggering. The global herbal supplement market now exceeds $170 billion annually and is growing at 8 to 10% per year. And Jiaogulan currently occupies only a fraction of this market, particularly dominant in Asia, but virtually unknown in North America and Europe, despite superior efficacy compared to mainstream supplements like ginseng or ginkgo biloba. A small-scale Jiaogulan growing operation, even in a greenhouse or high tunnel system occupying just 200 square meters, can produce 40 to 80 kilograms of dried leaf annually, which at wholesale prices of 12 to 18 US dollars per kilogram represents $480 to $1,440 in annual revenue from a single greenhouse. Retail dried leaf commands 30 to 50 US dollars per kilogram, while processed extracts and supplements sell at 80 to 150 US dollars per kilogram. The barrier to entry is remarkably low. Seeds cost 15 to 30 cents each, basic greenhouse infrastructure is inexpensive, and the plant requires minimal maintenance once established. More importantly, seed preservation matters. Jiaogulan produces viable seed reliably, and saving seed is straightforward. Allow mature berries to fully blacken on the vine, collect them when they fall naturally, dry them completely, extract the seeds, store them in cool, dry conditions, and they remain viable for 3 to 5 years. By growing Jiaogulan and saving seed, you participate in preserving genetic diversity and autonomy. You become independent of corporate seed suppliers for a plant that costs virtually nothing to grow, yet offers unprecedented health benefits. Consider this. If you consumed 1 cup of Jiaogulan tea daily, you would need approximately 365 grams of dried leaf annually, the production of roughly 1/4 of a mature plant, or what a single greenhouse or garden section could easily produce. For perhaps $50 in initial investment and minimal ongoing effort, you could ensure a year-round supply of a substance that, according to the research, meaningfully reduces your risk of heart disease, cognitive decline, cancer, and metabolic dysfunction. No other plant offers such comprehensive anti-aging benefit at such minimal cost. The challenge before you is now clear. The research exists. The villages that have consumed this herb for 2,000 years have already answered the question about efficacy. The only question remaining is whether you will choose to act on this knowledge or join the vast majority who, having heard this information, will do nothing and continue aging according to the default pathway programmed into their cells. Begin with seeds. In order from reputable suppliers that verify authenticity. There are now reliable sources across North America, Europe, and Asia. Germinate in spring. Establish plants in a sunny location with consistent moisture but excellent drainage. By the following year, you will harvest your first leaves. Dry them completely, store them in airtight containers away from light, and begin a daily practice of drinking 1 cup of Jiaogulan tea. Within 4 weeks, you will notice improved energy and mental clarity. Within 8 weeks, blood work will show improved lipid profiles and inflammatory markers. Within 1 year of consistent consumption, you will have become part of the lineage of those who understand that the greatest pharmacy is not a corporation, but a plant cultivated in your own soil. The herb of immortality awaits. That the question is whether you are ready to live accordingly.